Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Vibing with Sleazy, the podcast. This is season 5, episode 5. I've been having some goddamn technical difficulties this season, and I deleted this episode again. I had the whole episode 5 recorded, and it was great. It was a solo episode. It was perfect. And then, of course, some file corruption bullshit, and it deleted. So, episode 5, I'm going to record it again. So, I want to thank everybody for listening, tuning in, and downloading this season. If you want to listen to the past 4 seasons, check them out on the platforms. Just search Vibing with Sleazy, the podcast. Also, go to vibingwithsleazy.com, the website. Also, I have 4 episodes already out for this season. So thank you to everybody that's downloaded and tuned into those. And you can check those out now. Those episodes were great. So I'm actually going to be doing a few solo episodes here. Some things I've been wanting to cover and do, and things I've been researching on that I think would be a great podcast episode. I get a lot of great feedback from my episodes with guests, but I also get great feedback from episodes solo. So I want to thank everybody that shows love, and always hit the 5 stars wherever you're listening and downloading. And again, thank you to everybody that tunes in. Yes, it was frustrating to record a whole entire episode and um, for it to get deleted, but I also look at it as a way to, I guess it's practice. And it's also a case of, to make yourself better. But I don't know. I was really happy with that one. But it's happened a couple times, but never going to let it derail me. And I'm going to keep pumping out the episodes and content and, you know, never going to stop. So I'm going to do this episode again. So the first solo episode I wanted to cover was a true crime episode, Louisville edition. So I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. We have tons of true crime and a lot of famous murders that have happened here and homicides. So I'm going to get into all of those and cover those. And I think something that I can improve for my deleted episode that I did of this was I felt like with my research, I was kind of reading it word for word on some things. So I think that I've covered it all and I know all about them now, I can kind of tell them a little bit more naturally in a way than more from just from all my research. But anyways, I'm excited to do this episode again, and I know a lot of people love true crime, so I thought this would be fun, and it'd be fun to dive into 4 of the most heinous murders in Louisville, Kentucky history. These are 4 murders that are just fucked up, downright sickening, and when I did the past episode, I realized there's a lot of coincidences that are related to all 4 of these murders, like September, the 80s on a few of them, location, Popper level on a couple of them. It's kind of weird where uh, you start digging at all this stuff and you're like, holy shit, this is pretty similar. So, again, it was man, it just you got to vent when you lose something. So I'll shut up about it, but man, it just hurt that I lost all that. So I'm gonna get back into them though. So the first one I'm gonna cover on this True Crime Louisville Edition podcast episode of Bible with Sleazy the podcast is the famous Trinity Murders in Louisville, Kentucky. So basically, the Trinity murders, they occurred in September 29th, 1984, when Victor D. Wayne Taylor and George Ellis Wade kidnapped and murdered 2 17-year-old Trinity High School students, Scott Christopher Nelson and Richard David Stevenson. Taylor and Wade one was sentenced to death and one did get life imprisonment. Um, the whole situation of this case is, and that's another reason to do these episodes. Kind of want to tell my opinion on all 4 cases and kind of the lessons you can learn from all 4. Number one, you'll just learn throughout this podcast the justice system's fucked. I mean, it's really tough to find justice, and some of the cases do and some don't. But at the end of the day, too, it's also you'll learn in this episode that the human brain is crazy. I mean, the stuff that you learn and the way the brain operates, um, and how people can go so dark, and also just like on, when they take certain medications, things can happen, and just mental health in general, how serious it is, and how it's getting taken more serious nowadays, and it just really something that we gotta take serious more, and we gotta find people help, and we gotta also be, as humans, be good outlets for people so they can vent, talk about it naturally with people where they're comfortable. So, but yeah, so this case was really sickening. I learned about this as a kid. When I learned about this as a kid, it kind of was a stranger danger feeling, like that this could happen to you. And I did so many events, played sports, went to schools, went to dances, went to friends house, went all over, rode bikes. I never lived in fear, but this story just kind of makes you realize how anything can fucking happen to really anybody. And whew, it's fucked up. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pretty much just tell you the quick rundown of the murders. So on September 29th, 1984, Scott Nelson and Richard David Stevens were headed to Trinity High School, a soccer game at Louisville Male High School's football stadium on the East Burnett Avenue of Stensselburg neighborhood of Louisville, Kentucky, when they became lost. So um, this was close to Germantown, and they were going to the Louisville Male High School football stadium, and they were just looking for a ride, looking for directions. The pair stopped at Moby Dick. Moby Dick is a famous little chain here in Louisville. It's down to only a couple stores. It's um, not as hopping as it used to be. I also always, when I heard this story, would get it really confused with another Moby Dick. I always thought this happened at the Moby Dick down by U of L's campus, but it was actually at the one at Logan and Oak Street that's not around anymore. So they stopped there at that Moby Dick just to get directions, and they ran into Victor Taylor and and his cousin George Wade, and both of them said they would leave them to the stadium in exchange for a ride. So what's kind of fucked up about it is you can just picture them walking in to Moby Dick and just saying, "Hey, does anybody know where the stadium is?" And then two guys just like, "Hey, I'll give you a ride." But those two guys are about to end your fucking life. I mean, that's about it's fucked up. So instead of taking them to the vacant stadium, or excuse me, to the stadium, they took them to a vacant lot in the 300 block of Ardella Court, and that's near the football stadium where Louisville Middle High School was. And they were forced to take off their clothes, hand over their property, and were bound and gagged. Victor Taylor sexually assaulted one of them, and Nelson Stevenson was shot in the back of the head to avoid ID and Taylor and Wade. So what's fucked up is he got raped, his one guy did, and then his friend had to watch it, and then got murdered. So it's as dark and fucked up as it comes. So just very twisted. The widely publicized murders led to the suspects when a relative who had been given a Trinity High School jacket reported George Wade to the police. Wade implicated Victor Taylor in the crime, and the personal belongings of the two murdered students were found in the home of Taylor's mother. So the belongings were spread around, things were given out, they were robbed, and they were also taken. Their lives were taken. The trial was fucked up, that it even had to go. You would think just rush through it. It sucks you have to put a family through it, but the outcome I think is what everybody wanted. So after the change of venue, they moved the trial to Lexington, Kentucky. Taylor was convicted of 86 of kidnapping, robbery, sodomy, and murder. Wade had previously testified against Taylor and recanted his testimony, which led to Taylor unsuccessfully appealing his conviction. George Wade was convicted of kidnapping, robbery, and murder. Taylor is on death row at Kentucky State Penitentiary in Eddyville, and George Wade is serving a life sentence at the Kentucky State Reformatory in LaGrange, which is not too far from Louisville. Wade recanted his statement to police that Taylor was with him when he kidnapped, sodomized, and killed the boys. Wade made the statement more than 11 years after Taylor's conviction. Um, So there's a lot of books, stories, different things about this. You can find a lot online. Reddit, I dug into Reddit, and I didn't find too much about this, but you hear kind of the same story, and luckily these two guys got what they deserved. One of them, though, actually was in a Bennington Death Row ad in 2000 for a clothing campaign. It was called "We're on Death Row," and it was "We on Death Row," and it was featuring Victor Taylor and 24 other death row inmates from around the United States. So it's kind of fucked up that he got a little publicity in a clothing ad when he fucking ruined two guys' lives and families. But I don't know what Bennington. I've never heard of them. I don't know what they were, trying with that, but it was allowed. And but yeah, there one is sentenced to death and one is in life in prison. So very fucked up. Basically, just proves you gotta make sure you trust people that you're around and always put yourself around trustworthy people and don't give rides to strangers. I mean, especially in 2024, this is not the time. And if you do, good luck to you. Unless you're on Uber and being tracked, I don't really see a reason for it, but that's on you. But yeah, very sad. Rest in peace to those two dudes, and that's one that's going to definitely live in Louisville history for forever. Um, I'm going to switch it up how I did it from the last episode because if I'm redoing this, I'll do it the way I want. It's my show. So, anyways, I am going to cover the second one, which is actually the largest mass shooting in the state of Kentucky. This was the Standard Gravure shooting, which happened in September 14th, 1989. So again, September 80s. Weird that's all connected. Um, this is where Joseph Westbecker, a 47-year-old pressman, he was very depressed. His situation was this. So he was divorced twice. He had kids. He had to start paying child support, so he wasn't really getting to see his kids much. He started going to the hospital asking for psychiatric help. He really didn't have much of a life, and already dealing with two divorces and heartbreak and financial situations. He was not having it. He was not happy. He also wasn't happy with work. There was management changes, a lot of changes at Standard Beer, and you know the Bingham family at the time I think had it in the 80s, and they had sold it, and it was one of these cases where he I don't think he liked some of the stuff going down there. But what's crazy about um, this is definitely mental health was a big factor. Prozac actually got sued. The Eli and Lilly company that makes Prozac, they got sued because he took Prozac a month before he had started it, and then he ended up doing this mass shooting. Well, the more you dig, he actually had mass shooting feelings before he took Prozac, and he also wanted to kill people and hurt people, especially at work. He wanted to shoot up the whole office. Me had said this, and he also, the more you learn after he's now dead, is that a lot of fucked up shit happened to the guy. Um, and he also seems like he had a pretty rough life. But again, that's not an excuse to kill everybody. But what happened was super fucked up. It was a dark day. When you look at pictures, you see the famous Mayor Jerry Aberson down there, helping victims. And Prozac did lose this case, and so it's a case where this was before mass shootings were common, and when were not antidepressants were not as common. So it's pretty crazy. So I'm gonna dig into it real quick. Um, so basically, a quick background: Standard Beer was a prominent printing company founded in 1922 by Robert Worth Bingham. So, like I said, the Binghams. Reduced revenues led to employee wage freeze in '82, and in '86, the Bingham family sold the company. Standard Beer's companies or customers were retailers. Many of them were in process of going out of business, and then also um, paper shortage during the paper shortage era, and there was for them to be able to make paper for the marketplace. Uh, so his nickname was Rocky, and his colleagues seemed to like him. And what's crazy is like he had a heart. He actually didn't kill one guy that he liked, and when he did kill one guy he didn't mean to kill, he apologized. So it's really bizarre, um, that his actions and how everything took place, but then at the end of the day he could still stop and realize, oh, I don't want to kill my friend. I don't know. It's pretty wild. So on September 14, 1989, Wes Becker, who was nicknamed Rocky by his colleagues, he parked his car in front of Standard Gravure, which is downtown Louisville by Courier Journal. He entered the plane at 8:38. He carried a Polytech AK-47, a Chinese-made AK-47, an SIG Sauer P2226 9mm pistol, a duffel bag containing two Mac 11s, a snub-nosed 38 caliber Smith & Wesson Model 12 airweight revolver, a bayonet, and several hundred rounds of ammunition. So he was there to fucking murder people, like code blood. He took the elevator to the executive reception area on the third floor, and as soon as the doors opened, he fired at the receptionist, Sharon Nerdy, killing her. Angela Bowman, who he paralyzed, was shot right in the back. Searching for the president, Michael Shea, and other supervisors, he started walking through, just killing people that encountered him. He killed James' husband. He injured Forrest Conrad, Paul Warman, and John Stein, a binary supervisor whom he shot in the head and abdomen. Wes Becker then headed down the stairs to the press room. That's where he killed Paul Saley and wounded Stanley Hatfield and David Sadifat. Two electricians from Marine Electric who were working on Broken Machine got killed as well. So that's really fucked up. They didn't even work there, and he murdered them. Leaving his duffel bag under a stairwell, Wes Becker walked down to the basement where he encountered pressman John Tingle, who he alerted by loud noises, who went to see what was going on. Tingle greeted John and asked him what was happening. This is where Wes Becker, I guess, had some kind of heart, and he basically said, I told them I'd be back, get away from me. And he basically told him to move and get out of the way, which saved Tingle's life. Wes Becker continued through the basement, shooting Richard Barger in the back, killing him. According to witnesses, Wes Becker approached Barger's body, apologizing, apparently not wanting to kill him. That was one of his friends. He couldn't see where he was shooting from reports, and he ended up just shooting his friend. And back on the press room floor, he shot at anyone in his way, killing James Whipple, Lloyd White, and then entered the break room where he emptied the magazine, hitting all seven workers present, killing William Gannot with a shot to the head. Wes Becker then reloaded and resumed firing, fatally wounding Kenneth Finchers. Wes Becker then returned to the press room where he pulled out his SIG Sauer, put it under his chin, and shot himself, ending a shooting spree that lasted a half an hour. He shot 40 rounds. Woo! I mean, that's fucked up. This was around a time when mass shootings were not happening. And for this to happen in general is just downright sad and horrifying. And the people that were shot and killed were in the middle of their lives, 10 to 20 years away from retirement. Who knows? Having families and for this guy to do this. And this also just proves how much mental health is so important to analyze and to know and to take seriously these days. I want to read out the victims real quick. It was Richard Barger, Kenneth Finchers, William Gannot, James G. Husband, Sharon Needy, Paul Saley, Lloyd White, and James F. Whipple Sr. The age range ranged from 42 to 56. James Whipple is the oldest at 56, and Lloyd White was the youngest at 42. After the investigation, they went to his house. They found a revolver. They found another revolver, a starter pistol. They found his will. They found a Time magazine. And on the kitchen table, that Time magazine was featuring an article about Patrick Purdy, the guy who did the Cleveland Elementary School shooting earlier that same year. So it was like he was reading about what to do, how to do it, or pick up some info. His driver's license photo is famous, so you can find that online and you can see it. It's really creepy, but yeah, he had a rough life. When they started doing some research, and what I started learning is that with his psychiatric history, he tried to commit suicide 12 to 15 times. It showed that he felt like harming people and foremans at his work, he had said to therapists, and he made several attempts when he tried to commit suicide, I believe from like 78 to 87. I mean, he was in psychiatric hospital with mental illness 3 times during that period. He posed a threat to himself and others. And then in the years prior to the shooting, he threatened to kill a bunch of people, and then apparently he even he said these things to his wife before their divorce. He was divorced twice, like I said, which really hurt him, and he basically told people he would get his payback. And and what's sad is when he left in August '88, he told other workers that he'd come back and he wiped the place out and get even with the company. And he actually was serious. So sometimes when people say stuff, a lot of times it's, oh, he's just saying he's full of shit. But sometimes you got to take it serious because you don't know who's capable of what nowadays or any time. Um, Basically, he'd been, talking about guns and into guns, and then he even mentioned to a psychiatrist that a foreman forced him to perform oral sex on him. So he might have been abused at work, but his therapist seemed like he didn't take that serious. So he just wrote him a case for Prozac. They actually still have the prescription card somewhere, and it actually just says Prozac with a question mark. They actually got that during the investigation. That's fucking bizarre. So he's buried in Louisville's Cave Hill Cemetery, similar to a murder I'm going to discuss here in a little bit, where a victim's buried. But um, it's just a really, really sad situation. But yeah, what ended up happening was a federal big lawsuit, and it even went to the Kentucky Supreme Court, and it was with Prozac, and people were disclosed money, and um, it was also, a lot of stuff got talked about with that, negotiated. They even looked into some other medicines that Eli Lilly were making. So definitely look up that and check it out and see what you think. And I just think at the end of the day, it's another case of just fuck, like it just doesn't stop with some of these mass shooting things where it's just like you just want it to stop. You just don't, and you can't explain it. You just don't know what pushes somebody to get to that point. The next one I'm going to talk about before I'm going to go future, I'm going to go to recent, and then I'm going to go past to end it. But this one is a 2023 Louisville bank shooting. I actually lived in Louisville during this time. I was here during this time. I remember that day. I remember all the coverage on it. I also remember meeting a couple people that were killed during it and at events in the past. And then also kind of creepy that I had drove past the murderer's house multiple times just with work and going to friends' places. And, he only lived like 15 minutes from me. And it's also another case of mental illness and how the brain has to be taken serious and how head injuries have to be taken extremely serious. And if you're having thoughts and then you're having these things, you got to get looked into. But also, this man who did this was that did the mass shooting at this old national bank here in Louisville. He was trying to protest gun rights and violence. Like he thought uh, guns need more restrictions and people don't need to be buying them. And he was trying to hurt richer, more older white guys. I mean, he had, I guess, kind of his own manifesto. But the only thing that's weird is like if you're trying to promote guns are bad, why would you take a gun and kill all these people? But it also, once they started digging, um, they dug into this and they actually interviewed people. So after the shooting, they learned that he had so many injuries. He actually missed a whole school year in middle school due to concussions from football. He was really close with his family. He was an athlete. He was a popular kid. I think his parents were involved with the school as well. Well off, didn't really have too much trouble, just head issues, and he wore paddings, and I think he had it looked into a lot. And but his family also said he suffered from a lot of depression, and that was stuff that they went to the doctor and they looked into. And I think that they just assumed he had under control because he was living somewhat of a normal life. He enrolled at the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa and he graduated. He actually graduated. So after he graduated from Alabama, he didn't stay there. he moved back to Louisville and got really active with this Old National Bank. Now, Old National Bank is a local chain. I'm not sure if it goes anywhere bigger than Kentucky, but they do have multiple locations in Louisville. That location where the mass shooting happened is closed. It's right next to Louisville Bat Stadium, which makes it even sadder because that's kind of a happy place, a fun place I've been a billion times, and you would never think a mass shooting would happen anywhere around there, and you just don't want mass shootings to happen at all. It's fucked up. So, this guy, he had mental illness, but he was working at the bank. He volunteered a lot. If you look on pictures, you can tell that he took pictures with colleagues. He was social, and a lot of people that worked with him said he was kind of, you know, fair fair temper, like mild mannered, not really big talker, kind of chill. So, but he definitely had issues with people. I mean, he was going to try to prove a point somehow that day on what he wanted to do, and he ended up being a huge mass shooting. And we're so thankful that it didn't turn out like the standard Gravure shooting that was covered, and was so many victims like that one. But this one was just fucked up in general. And it's just crazy that this guy felt like he could just walk in and do that. There was so I'll basically tell you the shooting real quick. It happened on the first floor of the Old National Bank on East Main Street near the Louisville Slugger Fear and Waterfront Park. So it's the building that looks like a skate ramps on top of it next to Slugger Field for the people from here. The shooter used an AR-15 style rifle, according to federal law enforcement. Phone call placed at around 8:30 a.m. Eastern from Old National Bank reported an active shooter in the area. The call was later changed to an active aggressor report. Another crazy thing to think about it too. I literally worked 3 minutes from this office at Leo for a couple of years, and it's just fucking bizarre that this shit happens, and it's just so close. It makes you think sometimes. So the call was later changed to an active aggressor report. The employees of the Old National Bank were in a conference room during a scheduled virtual meeting when the shooter opened fire. A manager of the bank said she observed the shooting through her computer. So she was at another bank and she saw it through like Zoom. So think about being on a Zoom and you're just watching and you just see all your colleagues getting fucking murdered. Like that's pretty much what happened. So who knows? Hopefully that woman found some help after this all for her mental health. Um, so a manager of the bank said she observed the shooting, and like I said, and then after the first shots were fired, the shooting began live streaming the shooting on his Instagram until he was killed by officers of the LMPD. The live stream was taken down from his IG immediately. I don't. He was not a popular guy like here in Louisville, where he had like this huge following or mass following of followers. But people, of course, are want to always see sick and twisted shit. So I think he had people jumping on his IG, and they made sure they got that down because I don't know who would want to see that and see people shot like that. But that's the internet for you. So the eyewitness in the conference room recounted those in the room heard a click before the shooter opened fire. Another had just walked past the conference room and thought the shooting was construction noise before being alerted by another employee to hide. Officers arrived at the bank 3 minutes after the first call. A woman who was at the intersection at the start of the shooting recounted she saw a man lying near the entrance of the hotel before hearing shots and speeding off to a safer location. The shooter had set himself up in an ambush position to target cops. Around 8:45, the LMPD confirmed the officer exchanged gunfire with the shooter, who died to a police-inflicted bullet wound approximately 5 minutes after the police had arrived. So there was a lot of victims, and then there was also a cop that was very new to duty. He got shot in the head, had brain injury. He's just getting back. You see him on the news now in charity events. I believe his name's Nick. He was one of the people that went after him, and he got shot. So that was a wild situation too as well. The 5 people that were killed in the shooting, I'm going to read them off. The victims were Josh Barrett, 40, Deanna Eckert, 57, Tommy Elliott, 63, Juliana Farmer, 45, and Jim Tutt, 64, who was really close with Andy Beshear, the Kentucky governor. What's sad is, Tommy Elliott, Jim Tutt, they probably only had 20, 30 more years of life. And and then somebody just comes in with a gun and takes it from them at work when they're just trying to make money, probably a few years from retirement too. So it really makes you think about those situations. The chief medical officer U of L said they received 9 patients, 2 cops, and who were injured in the shooting. 3 of them had been released that afternoon. 3 were still in the hospital with non-threatening injuries, and 3 who were critically wounded have required operations, and 1 needed brain surgery, which was that cop. Um, so Connor James Sturgeon, like I said, I told you his story. Successful kid, smart kid, but brain injury. Clearly had evil intentions in him, and something really made him dark. I mean, he was posting Star Wars memes and all these dark memes on his Instagram, and you know, his his mom, I believe, also called in afterwards and had a feeling it was her son, and you know, they were like they didn't know where he got a gun from, and he ended up getting the gun recently at a sporting goods store in Louisville, I believe Academy of Sports. So it's just really fucked up. And yeah, he lived off Camp Taylor, and the FBI searched all his stuff. And you know, this is what the LMPD ended up putting in his case file when they closed it. Connor Sturgeon wrote his goals to tell his story and impact change to gun access. Connor Sturgeon, when proceeds to list his story involving having good family and friends and doing everything right in his professional social life, Connor goes on to say he was able to buy a gun and highlights again politicians with no interest in making things better and stop letting anyone buy guns or this will keep happening. So again, he's trying to protest people getting it, but he ended up killing people with guns. It is so he was trying to protest something, but he did it not the way you're supposed to. Very dark and fucked up. Just it's just it's scary that it can get to this point. Um, you know, they have his brain as of April 2023. They're researching it, and he had a lot of chronic trauma. Encephalopathy, a degenerative brain condition, was definitely what he had. So that definitely had a case to it. And this made national news. People talked. People said, you know, the bank CEO, President Biden talked, Governor Bashir talked. I mean, this made national news. It was very, very sad. And I hate that it was recent. I hate that it's so close to home and that it was somewhere I frequent close by. And also, rest in peace to the people I had met like Liba events, a couple of those colleagues. I didn't know them personally, but just know them through business. Old National Bank was a lot of times at events where Leo Weekly was. So it really fucked me up to know that I had encountered some of these victims and, you know, just God bless their souls. I mean, it's just, it's very, very sad. The last one I'm going to touch on is a really, really fucked up case. I mean, all of these are, but this one's really fucked up. This one is about Mel Ignatow. Basically, he was a horrible human being. I mean, his real name was Melvin Henry Ignatow. He was born on March 26, 1938, and he lived to September 1st, 2008. So the deal with this guy, he was a nut job. So, and also a very sickening psychopath. And just thought he was just sinister. He thought he could get away with anything. He literally thought he could get away with murder. So the situation with this guy, he had a girlfriend named Brenda Schaefer, and he was with her for 2 years. And while he was with her, you know, she was beautiful, and he was supposedly real charming in public and a businessman and all this stuff. But he ended up starting to get abusive, and she wasn't happy. Brenda wasn't feeling him anymore. So Brenda was going to break up with him, and Mel had figured it out. I don't know how he did. That's something that I can't even find on Reddit how he found out, but he found out, and he decided he was going to murder her, and instead. So um, what ended up happening that's so fucked up and dark is that he called his ex to help him, and what happened was Brenda and him broke up, and Brenda called him and said, "Hey, you have some jewelry over here at my house and some things. How about I bring it over to your house and I'll give it to you? So he agreed. She drove over there. Well, when she gave him the stuff, he basically kidnapped her and took her to his ex girlfriend's house. Well, his ex girlfriend, she, when you look at pictures of her, hideous woman, in my opinion, and just evil when you really read about her. Her last name was Shore. She was a basically the case with her was I'm trying to find, let me see her name. So Mary Ann Shore, that was her name. So she was the girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, who helped him rape, kill, murder, and get rid of the body. So they both are complete psychopaths. And this is just sickening because Brenda Schaefer, when you look at pictures, beautiful woman, had a great family, and just wasn't happy, was in a toxic relationship. And this dude took it too fucking far and then thought he could get away with it. So basically, Mel was a resident of Louisville. He was tried for the 1988 murder of his girlfriend Brenda Schaefer. The case was controversial. He was acquitted, but later admitted to killing her. Under the legal principle of double jeopardy, he could not be tried for the second time of murder, but he was instead convicted to serve roughly 10 years in prison for instances of perjury, which he did federally and state. He did so. He actually committed federal and state perjury charges, and he ended up getting federal 8 years, 1 month imprisonment, Kentucky 9 years imprisonment. The murder is basically Mel and Brenda Schaefer. They had been in a relationship for 2 years, and like I said, uh, she was going to break it off, and he knew. So he called his former girlfriend Mary Ann Shore, and she planned to help him carry out the murder. They spent weeks making preparations to kill her. And Shore testified they had scream tested her house, so they were in there screaming to find out if her screams could be heard, and they dug a grave in the woods behind it. I mean, that is fucking disgusting. So then on September 23rd, 1988, Schaefer met Ignatow to return some jewelry, like I said, and then he took her to the house. That's where he blindfolded her, gagged her, bound her, and raped her. Then he stripped her down, photographed her in positions, and then he raped her, sodomized her, and beat her before killing her with chloroform. Shore took pictures while this raping and torturing was happening and assisted Ignatow in covering up the murder. They buried her behind Shore's house. He took her jewelry and exposed the film. I mean, absolutely fucking disgusting. I mean, fuck this guy. Um, so what happened was after what happened once they did the investigation, they looked at Mel, but they didn't have any evidence and they couldn't find the body. Shore, though, got caught, and because Mel actually brought up her name, and they went to her house, and that's where she showed the body, admitted to everything. Well, they started blaming her. They didn't blame Mel. They blamed her, so that's why they let Mel off. Well, Mel ended up hanging out with Shore again because Shore was saying, "Hey, the FBI's on whatever." Well, they had her wear a wire so they could let her off on lesser charges. Well, he ended up basically admitting that he lied, so the FBI got perjury. Well, he ended up admitting this at it's now a CVS there by Dairy Queen off Popper Level, again, Popper Level Road. But he admitted it at Erler's ice cream in the parking lot there, where that CVS is now. I learned that. So that's he ended up confessing and he got caught. So what's crazy is he ended up serving prison and he got out and then he found Jesus. He ended up acting like he was super religious and he ended up joining a church and he didn't tell church people about his history. Well, some church people didn't know. Well, then it got word around and then people didn't want to be around him. He lived with his son and his son got a lot of torture. His son got a lot of, jokes and made fun of and kind of ridiculed for being related to a murderer. And, it's not fair to him because his dad's a piece of shit, but also what's he going to expect? His dad's a horrible guy. So what's crazy is I guess he took care of his dad for a bit. Well, then that Mel guy, where they did this murder, I drive past it all the time in Newburgh. It's on Popper Level Road. It's called Stone Massage now, but it's like the property, and it's crazy to think that a dead body was buried there. Now, Brenda's body was moved to Cave Hill, where she's properly buried now, and she's actually buried in the same place where our Joseph guy that did the mass shooting is. So, kind of all connected in that way. And then again, this happened September in the 80s, so 4 years after the Trinity Murders in 88, and then Trinity Murders happened in 84. So it's all just all this fucked up shit happened in the 80s in Louisville around with murders and always in September. It's fucking weird. So and always in the Poplar Level area. Um, and what's crazy too is like the more you research and dig into this, he ended up living at some house 4 miles from her, but then he ended up dying at 70. He lived off Gagel, which is out in Shavley area, in some little small apartment. Well, he was by himself. He fell, he scratched his head and his arm, and he bled everywhere. And he was trying to crawl for help. Well, people that lived by him said he was screaming for Jesus to take him, and he was in pain, and he was miserable, and he's alone and lonely. Well, fuck him. He deserved all that for what he did. But at the end of the day, karma got him at 70 and he ended up dying out. But it's just really sad. You rest in peace, Brenda. Her family was so heartbroken. They didn't even get to see the trial happen for even the first trial. They died. And he was such a twisted man that he would walk their neighborhood when he was let off just to kind of rub it in their face that he got off from it. And I think he probably knew that they knew something. So it's just fucked up. But those are the four murder cases I wanted to cover. Again, I had already done this episode, but I wanted to re-record it, season 5, episode 5. So this was a solo one. It was a lot of fun. This is going to be called Sleezy Vibes with True Crime Louisville Edition. I might do another one of these on another season. I got a couple more solo episodes coming with some stuff I want to cover. Stay tuned. I'm not going to ruin the surprise, but listen to all the past 4 seasons on all the platforms or on vibingwithsleazy.com, my website. Also check out Vibing with Sleazy, the podcast on Facebook, Instagram. Show love, ask questions. If there's anything I didn't cover, let me know, or anything that you want to contribute to these cases, let me know, because I'm always fascinated about it. I did a lot of research. I dug into Reddit, Google, everything. So, but this is a lot of fun, and it's fascinating. It's sickening. It's also there's a lot of lessons to be learned, and it's also good to tell these stories because the victims, they deserve a legacy, and they deserve that their stories told as well. But thank you all for listening, showing love, supporting. I love y'all. Peace. This is season 5, episode 5, Bible Sleazy, the podcast.